The simulation room fell silent as the last enemy ship exploded across the holographic display. Minho Park stood at his command station, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. Around him, his alien classmates operated their controls with ease. Some had multiple arms that moved across panels simultaneously. Others used telepathic links to communicate instantly with their team members. Minho had only 2 hands and a voice comm that lagged by precious seconds. Commander Velthar entered the room, his reptilian scales gleaming under the harsh lights. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with eyes that missed nothing. He walked past each station, reviewing performance scores on his datapad. When he reached Minho's station, he stopped. "Cadet Park," Velthar said, his voice like grinding stones. "You completed the simulation in 47 minutes. The average time was 32 minutes. Minho stood straighter. "Yes, sir. I had to compensate for reaction time differences and communication delays." "Compensate," Velthar repeated. An interesting choice of words. He moved to the center of the room. "Cadets, attention." Every student in the room snapped to attention. There were over 100 of them, representing dozens of species from across the Galactic Union. Minho was the only human. Earth had only joined the Union 5 years ago, and he was part of the first generation to attend the Galactic Military Academy. "Your final examination is now announced," Velthar said. "Each of you will spend 1 full rotation on a death world of your choosing. You will have basic survival equipment only. No weapons, no advanced technology, no rescue unless you trigger your emergency beacon, which results in automatic failure." The room erupted in nervous chatter. Death worlds were infamous across the galaxy. These were planets so hostile that no sane species would colonize them. Extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, deadly predators, or all of the above. They were used as prisons or simply avoided entirely. "You will select your death world by the end of this week," Velthar continued. "Choose wisely. This test has a 15% failure rate. Failure means injury, trauma, or in rare cases, death before the emergency beacon can bring help." Minho felt his heart pounding. Around him, cadets were already discussing options. Most would choose the lowest-rated death worlds, the ones barely dangerous enough to qualify. "Smart strategy, sir," Minho heard himself say. "I would like to volunteer my selection now." Every eye in the room turned to him. Velthar's expression was unreadable. "You wish to announce your choice now, Cadet Park?" "Yes, sir. I choose Earth." For 3 full seconds, there was absolute silence. Then the room exploded with noise. Laughter, gasps, and shouts filled the air. A 4-armed insectoid cadet named Rin, who shared Minho's combat tactics class, turned to stare at him with all 6 eyes wide. Silence. Velthar's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The room obeyed instantly. The commander approached Minho slowly. "Cadet Park, Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. There are only 43 Class 12 worlds in the known galaxy. Are you certain?" "Yes, sir." Velthar pulled up a holographic display for the entire room to see. Earth appeared, rotating slowly, looking beautiful and blue. Then the statistics began scrolling beside it. "Earth," Velthar read aloud. "Atmosphere contains 21% free oxygen, which is corrosive to most species' respiratory systems. Gravity is 1.0 standard, considered crushing by 70% of Union species. Temperature variations between seasons exceed 60 degrees standard in many regions. Weather systems include electrical storms, rotating wind formations called hurricanes, and frozen precipitation. The planet hosts over 8 million documented species, many of them predatory. Microbial life is aggressive and varied. Insect species outnumber sentient population by quintillions." With each fact, the laughter in the room died away. Some cadets looked genuinely disturbed. The last non-human to attempt survival training on Earth lasted 4 hours before triggering their emergency beacon. Velthar said, "They spent 2 weeks in medical recovery, and that was in what humans call a temperate forest zone." He looked directly at Minho. "I ask you again, Cadet Park. Are you certain?" Minho met his instructor's eyes. "Sir, I was born on Earth. I grew up there. If I cannot pass this test on my own world, I have no business being in this academy." Velthar studied him for a long moment. "You may choose your location on Earth. Where will you go?" "The Amazon rainforest, sir." More gasps. Even Velthar's scales seemed to darken slightly. "The Amazon rainforest is noted in our database as one of Earth's most hostile environments. Extreme heat, humidity that can drown breathing systems, countless venomous species, diseases, and predators that include cats large enough to kill a Vrexian warrior. Yes, sir. That is my choice. Velthar nodded slowly. Very well. Your trial will begin in 2 weeks. Dismissed. As the cadets filed out, Minho could hear them talking. Some were laughing at him, calling him suicidal or stupid. Others spoke in quieter tones, uncertain what to make of his choice. Rin approached him in the corridor outside. Minho, the insectoid said, using his first name for the first time since they met. Why? You could choose an easier world. Pass the test safely. Minho adjusted his pack on his shoulder. Because everyone here thinks humans are weak, slow, clumsy. We do not have natural armor or multiple limbs or telepathy. But we have something else. What? We survived Earth not for a few years or a few generations. For 300,000 years. We walked across that entire planet with nothing but our brains and our endurance. If I can show them what that means, maybe they will stop underestimating us. Rin's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Or you will die proving nothing. Maybe, Minho agreed. But I do not think so. That evening, Minho sat in his quarters and opened a comm channel to Earth. After a delay, Hana Kim's face appeared on the screen. She was in uniform, stationed on Earth's orbital defense platform. Minho, I heard the news already, she said, her expression worried. Are you insane? The Amazon? Hello to you too, Hana, he smiled. I am fine. How are you? Do not joke about this. You know how dangerous. She stopped, shaking her head. Of course you know. You grew up in Busan. You hiked the mountains every weekend. But the Amazon is different. I have been studying. I will be prepared. Prepared. She laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Minho, you always do this. You push yourself to prove something to everyone else. This time it is important. Not just for me. For all of us. For Earth. Hana was quiet for a moment. Promise me you will come back. I promise. It is just 7 days in the jungle. I have done harder things. Name one. Eating the cafeteria food here for 6 months. That made her laugh genuinely. They talked for another hour about small things, avoiding the topic of the trial. When they finally said goodbye, Minho sat alone in his quarters and looked at the data files on his desk. Earth. The Amazon. Home. Everyone thought he was being brave or foolish. But Minho knew something they did not understand yet. He was not trying to conquer Earth or prove he could survive somewhere deadly. He was simply going home. And that made all the difference. Outside his window, he could see the stars. Somewhere among them, Earth orbited its yellow sun, turning slowly, waiting. In 2 weeks, he would stand on its soil again. In 2 weeks, he would show the galaxy what it meant to be human. He smiled and began his preparations. The training facility on Station Nexus Prime smelled of recycled air and metal. Minho stood in the center of a large room, surrounded by holographic displays showing different Earth environments. Dr. Ji-Wan Lee, one of only 3 humans working at the academy, stood beside him with a data pad. They think you are crazy, Dr. Lee said bluntly. The betting pools have you at 3% survival odds. Only 3%? Minho raised an eyebrow. I expected lower. Dr. Lee smiled slightly. She was older than Minho by 15 years, with gray streaking her black hair. She had left Earth to study xenobiology and had been at the academy for 8 years. Let me show you something interesting. She pulled up a document on the holographic display. It was titled Environmental Hazards Assessment, Sol 3, Earth. This is what the Galactic Union sees when they look at Earth, she explained. Read the summary, Minho read aloud. Earth represents a Class 12 death world due to multiple compounding hazard factors. The oxygen-rich atmosphere causes rapid oxidation and respiratory damage to most carbon-based life forms. Gravity exceeds comfortable tolerance for 70% of known species. Temperature variations are extreme and unpredictable. Indigenous life demonstrates unusual aggression and adaptability. Microbial environment is hostile. Recommendation: avoid extended surface contact. Now let me tell you what that really means, Dr. Lee said. She changed the display to show a Vrexian, one of the more common species in the Union. They were tall, gray-skinned beings with elongated limbs. Vrexians evolved on a low-oxygen world with 0.6 standard gravity. When they breathe Earth's air for more than a few hours, the oxygen literally burns their lung tissue. Our atmosphere is poison to them. She switched to another species, the crystalline Calyx. Kelix cannot process temperatures above 15 degrees standard. Earth's average temperature is 18 degrees. They need constant cooling suits just to survive what we call a cool day. Minho began to understand. So the things that make Earth deadly to them are completely normal to us, Dr. Lee finished. We evolved there. Our bodies are built for that environment. High oxygen, our cells need it. 1 standard gravity. Our bones and muscles developed under that exact pressure. Temperature swings. We have sweat glands, we shiver, we adapted. The microbes? We have immune systems that have been fighting Earth's bacteria and viruses for millions of years. She pulled up more data. The predators they fear, like jaguars or crocodiles, are dangerous, yes. But humans have been dealing with predators since before we had fire. We learned to read their behavior, avoid them, or fight them off. It is in our instincts. Minho felt something shift in his understanding. He was not preparing to survive a death world. He was preparing to show the galaxy that their definition of deadly was limited by their own experience. Over the next week, Minho did not train to survive Earth. He studied how aliens perceived Earth's dangers. He learned which species found water dangerous, which ones could not tolerate Earth's day-night temperature changes, and which ones would collapse under standard gravity within hours. Taemin Choi, another human cadet who worked in communications, helped him understand the observation protocols. They sat in the station's small Earth cuisine restaurant, one of the few places humans could eat familiar food. The entire trial will be broadcast live, Taemin explained between bites of kimchi. Hundreds of thousands of cadets and instructors across the Union stations will be watching. The Academy wants this to be educational. Educational, Minho repeated. They want to watch me fail. Some do, but others are genuinely curious. Humans are still new to the Union. Most species have never seen one of us in person. You will be the first human most of them have ever really paid attention to. No pressure then, Taemin laughed. The cameras are automated and remote. They will follow you but will not interfere. If you trigger the emergency beacon, a ship can reach you within 30 minutes anywhere on Earth. The beacon is waterproof, shockproof, and responds to your biometrics if you are unconscious. I will not need it. Minho. Taemin's expression turned serious. The Amazon is not a training simulation. Real jaguars. Real snakes. Real diseases. Do not be overconfident. I am not overconfident. I am prepared. Minho met his friend's eyes. Trust me. The survival course was taught by instructor Qualix, a being made of contained gases that communicated through a translator device. Qualix had survived trials on 6 different death worlds and was considered the Academy's foremost expert on hostile environment survival. Cadet Park, Qualix's translator hummed. Your choice has created much discussion. I wish to understand your reasoning. They were alone in the instructor's office, a room with adjustable atmospheric controls to accommodate Qualix's unique needs. Sir, I chose Earth because it is the world I know best, Minho said honestly. I have studied the survival manuals for other death worlds. They are designed for species who did not evolve there. Every piece of advice is about how to protect yourself from an alien environment. That is correct survival doctrine. But I do not need protection from Earth. I need to remember what I already know, how to read the forest, how to find water, how to avoid dangerous animals. These are things humans have done for thousands of generations. Qualix's gases swirled in a pattern that Minho had learned meant the instructor was thinking. You believe the trial is not about survival skills, but about psychological endurance. Remaining calm in a hostile environment. For most cadets, yes. For me, it is about showing the galaxy that hostile is relative. What is deadly to them is home to me. An interesting perspective. I approve. Qualix pulled up a star map. I have survived death worlds by learning to see them as the native species do. You are doing the same, but you are the native species. Use that advantage. The day before departure, Minho received a message to report to Commander Velthar's office. He arrived promptly and stood at attention. Velthar did not look up from his desk immediately. When he did, his reptilian eyes studied Minho carefully. Sit, Cadet. Minho sat. I have been reviewing Earth's history files, Velthar said. Your species has an unusual relationship with your homeworld. Sir, most species that evolve on death worlds either develop extreme natural defenses or they die out. Humans have minimal natural defenses. No armor, no venom, no camouflage. Yet you spread across your entire planet, surviving in deserts, jungles, Arctic zones, and mountains. How? Minho thought about the question. We adapt, sir. Not our bodies, but our behavior. We learn to make clothing for cold, shelter for heat, tools for hunting, fire for cooking. We studied the patterns of weather and animals. We cooperated in groups. We remembered and taught our children. Generation after generation, we learned more. You conquered your world with your minds. No, sir. We never conquered Earth. We learned to live with it. There is a difference. Belthar leaned back in his chair. I have commanded soldiers from 70 different species, Cadet Park. I have seen the bravest warriors and the most brilliant tacticians. But I have never seen what I see in humans. You are stubborn in a way that defies logic. You attempt things that should be impossible, and sometimes you succeed through sheer refusal to quit. Is that a compliment, sir? It is an observation. One more thing, Cadet. The entire academy will be watching. Some want you to fail because they fear what human success might mean for the established order. Others want you to succeed because they believe the Union needs new perspectives. Do not let either group influence your decisions. Survive, that is all that matters. Yes, sir. As Minho left the office, he felt the weight of what was coming. This was not just about passing a test. This was about showing the galaxy who humans were, what they were capable of, why Earth, for all its dangers, had produced a species worthy of standing among the stars. He returned to his quarters and made one final call to Hana. Tomorrow, he said simply when her face appeared. I will be watching, she promised. The entire Defense Force will be watching. Make us proud, I will make us understood. That is better than pride. The next morning, Minho boarded the transport ship that would take him to Earth. He carried only basic equipment, a knife, fire starter, water purifier tablets, basic medical supplies, and the emergency beacon. Everything was standard issue for any species. As the ship broke orbit from Nexus Prime, Minho looked back at the massive station one last time. Somewhere in there, thousands of beings were preparing to watch him fail. He smiled. They had no idea what was coming. The dropship descended through Earth's atmosphere, and Minho watched through the viewport as clouds parted to reveal the endless green of the Amazon rainforest below. From this height, it looked like a carpet of trees stretching to every horizon. Beautiful, peaceful, deadly, if you believed the reports Captain Somin Yang, the human liaison officer managing Earthside logistics, sat across from him in the passenger bay. She was reviewing her datapad, occasionally glancing at Minho with an expression that mixed concern and curiosity. The landing zone is clear, she said. We will drop you at coordinates selected by the Academy's monitoring team. They chose a location 30 kilometers from the nearest human settlement. No trails, no infrastructure, nothing but primary rainforest. Good, Minho said simply. Your observation cameras are already in position. Automated drones will follow you but maintain distance. They will record everything but will not interfere unless you trigger the beacon. She paused. Minho, I have to ask. Are you really confident about this?
Captain, did you grow up on Earth?
Yes, Sol. But I never went into the Amazon. Neither have I. But my grandfather taught me survival skills in the mountains around Busan. He grew up in a time when people still knew how to live with the land, not just on it. He taught me to read nature, to understand it. The Amazon is different from Korean mountains, but the principles are the same. Soman nodded slowly. The whole Union is watching this. The feed went live 20 minutes ago. Already over 200,000 viewers. The dropship's engines changed pitch as they approached the landing zone. Through the viewport, Minho could see individual trees now, massive trunks rising 40 meters high, their canopies forming layers of green. Between them, shadows and glimpses of undergrowth. The ship touched down in a small clearing, barely large enough for the landing gear. The rear ramp opened and immediately Minho felt it. The heat, the humidity. The air itself felt thick, alive, full of moisture and the scent of plants and soil and life. He stood and grabbed his pack. It contained his basic supplies, a change of clothes, and the field guide he had memorized but brought anyway. The emergency beacon was clipped to his belt. 7 days, Soman said. Good luck. Minho walked down the ramp and stepped onto Earth soil. The moment his boots touched ground, he heard the ship's engines powering up behind him. Within seconds, it lifted off, rising above the canopy and disappearing. The sound faded, replaced by the noise of the jungle. And what noise it was. Birds calling, insects buzzing, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant sound of running water. Minho closed his eyes and breathed deeply. The air was warm and wet, filling his lungs. After 6 months breathing the recycled, controlled atmosphere of the station, this felt like drinking cold water after a long thirst. He opened his eyes and looked around. The clearing was small, surrounded by massive trees. Vines hung between branches. The ground was covered in fallen leaves, moss, and countless small plants. Above, the canopy filtered sunlight into a green-tinted glow. One of the observation drones hovered about 20 meters away, its camera pointed at him. Minho waved at it, then turned to assess his situation. First priority was shelter. The sun was past noon, which gave him maybe 5 hours of daylight. He needed protection from rain and insects before dark. He started walking the perimeter of the clearing, looking for suitable materials. Across the galaxy, in the observation center at the academy, dozens of instructors and hundreds of cadets watched the feed on large displays. The camera showed Minho moving methodically through the clearing, examining plants and fallen branches. His biometrics are elevated, one observer noted. Heart rate increased, respiration rapid. That is normal adjustment to the environment, Commander Velthar said. He stood at the front of the room, watching intently. Earth's humidity is approximately 90% in that region. His body is compensating. Watch how he moves. Minho found a fallen tree partially covered in moss. The trunk was thick but hollow, rotted from the inside. He tested it with his foot, then began clearing vines from around it. Using his knife, he cut several long, flexible branches from nearby shrubs. What is he constructing? Rin asked, all 6 eyes focused on the screen. Shelter, Dr. Lee said. She had been invited to provide commentary. He is using the fallen log as a base. Very efficient. Over the next 2 hours, Minho worked steadily. He positioned large palm fronds across the log, creating a slanted roof. He wove smaller branches together to form walls on 3 sides, leaving one side open for ventilation. He lined the inside with dry leaves and moss, checking carefully for insects first. The observers watched in silence as he worked. There was something almost hypnotic about his movements. No wasted effort, no hesitation. He worked like someone who had done this 100 times before. When the shelter was complete, Minho stepped back to examine it. Not beautiful, but functional. It would keep off rain and provide protection from wind. The elevated position would help avoid ground-dwelling insects and snakes. Next priority was water. He had purification tablets, but he needed to find a source first. He listened carefully, then started walking east where he had heard running water earlier. He is leaving the clearing, someone observed. Does he realize he might not find his way back? Look at what he is doing, Belthar said. Minho was breaking small branches as he walked, marking his trail. Every 20 meters he would snap a branch at chest height, leaving it hanging. A clear path to follow back. He found the stream after 15 minutes of walking. It was small, maybe 2 meters wide, flowing over rocks and around fallen logs. The water was brown but moving, which was good. Stagnant water was dangerous. Moving water could be treated. He filled his canteen, added a purification tablet, and waited. While he waited, he examined the area around the stream. This would be important for the next week. Water meant life. Animals would come here to drink. He needed to understand the patterns. He noticed tracks in the mud near the water's edge. Large cat prints. A jaguar, probably. The tracks were old, from yesterday at least, based on how the mud had dried around them. Good to know. He would need to be careful, especially at dawn and dusk when big cats hunted. Minho drank deeply from his canteen once the tablet had time to work. The water tasted of minerals and earth. Nothing like the processed water on the station. It was perfect. He followed his trail markers back to the clearing, arriving as the sun was getting low. The quality of light was changing, the green glow deepening to something almost golden. Fire was next. He gathered dry wood from dead branches still attached to trees. Wood on the ground was often too wet in the rainforest. He needed dry kindling, and the best place to find it was up high where rain drained away and sun could dry it. The observers watched as he prepared a fire pit, arranged his wood, and used his fire starter. The spark caught on the dry moss he had prepared, and small flames grew steadily. Within minutes, he had a good fire burning. Why does he need fire? One cadet asked. The temperature is well above freezing. Multiple reasons, Dr. Lee explained. Fire provides warmth when temperature drops at night. It helps with cooking. The smoke repels insects, the light deters predators, and psychologically fire is comforting. Humans have been gathering around fires for over 1,000,000 years. It is part of who we are. As darkness fell, the jungle transformed. The daytime sounds faded, replaced by new ones. Frogs began their evening chorus, a sound so loud it seemed impossible it came from such small creatures. Nightbirds called. In the distance, something howled. Monkeys, probably. Minho sat by his fire, eating a meal made from his dried rations. He had been tempted to try fishing in the stream, but decided to save that for tomorrow. First day, the priority was establishing base camp. Everything else could wait. He looked up at the camera drone hovering nearby. Its light blinked steadily in the darkness. "You call this a death world," he said quietly, knowing the microphone would pick up his voice. "But listen to it. Thousands of species all living together, eating, breeding, competing, cooperating. This is not death. This is life in its purest form. Concentrated, intense, yes, it is dangerous. But it is also beautiful." He pointed up at the canopy, where breaks in the leaves revealed stars beginning to appear. "Those stars up there, that is where you live now. In metal stations with recycled air and artificial gravity. Safe, controlled. But this is where humans learn to be human, under these trees. Beside fires like this one. We did not conquer this place. We became part of it. And that is why I am not afraid." In the observation center, several cadets shifted uncomfortably. Minho's calm confidence was starting to make them wonder. Maybe he knew something they did not. Commander Velthar allowed himself a small smile. The human was exceeding expectations already. And this was only day one. Minho added more wood to his fire and settled into his shelter. The sounds of the jungle surrounded him, but they did not feel threatening. They felt like home. He closed his eyes and slept, while across the galaxy hundreds of thousands of beings watched and wondered. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight he had shelter, water, and fire. Tonight he had everything he needed. Morning in the Amazon came not with silence breaking, but with sound building. Minho woke to the dawn chorus, hundreds of bird species announcing the new day. He lay in his shelter for a moment, listening, letting his body wake naturally. His clothes were damp with humidity, but he was dry and rested. Day 3. He had fallen into a rhythm. Wake at dawn, tend the fire, boil water, eat. Then activities, improving shelter, gathering food, exploring the area, documenting plants. At night, return to camp, eat, maintain fire, sleep. Simple patterns that his ancestors would recognize. But today, something was different. His left hand hurt. He examined it in the morning light. 2 days ago, he had cut himself while sharpening a branch for a fishing spear. Just a small cut on his palm. He had cleaned it immediately and wrapped it with clean cloth from his supplies. Yesterday, it had looked fine. Today, the skin around it was red and warm to touch. Infection. Across the galaxy in the observation center, the medical team's alerts chimed. They had been monitoring Minho's biometrics continuously, and the signs were clear. Elevated white blood cell count, localized inflammation, slight fever beginning. "The microbial infection has begun," the chief medical officer announced. She was a Kelix, her crystalline body refracting the light from the displays. "This is the most common failure point on Earth trials. The microbial density is extreme. Even with treatment, most species cannot survive Earth's bacterial environment." Lieutenant Daeho Sung, who had been following the trial from Earth Defense Command, felt his stomach tighten. He had been one of Minho's biggest supporters, arguing that humans deserved more respect in the Union. If Minho failed now, especially from something as mundane as an infection, it would reinforce every stereotype about humans being too fragile for harsh environments. How long until it becomes critical? Commander Velthar asked. For most species, 6 to 8 hours. Then he will need to trigger the beacon or risk serious harm. And for humans, the medical officer hesitated. Unknown. We have limited data on human immune response to tropical infections in real conditions. On screen, Minho was examining his hand carefully. The camera zoomed in, showing the infected cut clearly. He pressed around it gently, testing for signs of spreading. Then he stood and walked to his fire, building it up until it was burning hot. "What is he doing?" Rin asked. The insectoid had become a regular presence in the observation center, watching every day. Minho took his knife and held the blade in the fire. He waited, letting it heat until the metal glowed slightly. Then he removed it, let it cool for 30 seconds, and cleaned it with his remaining antiseptic wipe. He sat down, took a deep breath, and reopened the cut. The camera caught his expression, focused, controlled, but clearly in pain. He pressed the wound, forcing it to bleed fresh blood. Then he cleaned it thoroughly with boiled water that he had let cool. "He is debriding the wound," Dr. Lee said quietly, "removing infected tissue. Basic field medicine." But Minho was not finished. He left his shelter and walked into the jungle, the camera following. He seemed to be looking for something specific, examining plants carefully. After 10 minutes, he found it. A plant with broad leaves and thick stems. He cut several leaves and brought them back to camp. "What plant is that?" someone asked. Dr. Lee was already pulling up botanical databases. "Give me a moment. Got it. That is Kalanchoe pinnata, common name life plant, native to Madagascar but grows in tropical regions worldwide. It has natural antibacterial properties. Traditional medicine used it for treating wounds and infections." Minho crushed the leaves into a paste using a flat rock. He applied the paste directly to his wound, then wrapped it with clean cloth. His expression showed relief as the plant's cooling properties took effect. "Will it work?" Velthar asked. "Maybe," Dr. Lee said. "But his real advantage is not the plant. It is his immune system. Humans evolved on Earth. We have been fighting Earth's microbes for millions of years. Our bodies know these infections. Our immune response is specifically adapted to handle them." The day passed. Minho continued his routine despite the injury. He could not use his left hand well, so he adapted. He caught fish using a trap instead of a spear. He gathered fruit that required only his right hand to pick. He moved more slowly, more carefully, but he did not stop. By evening, the medical monitors showed his white blood cell count rising sharply. His body was fighting the infection aggressively. "His fever is increasing," the medical officer reported. "Temperature now 38.4 degrees. That is still within human normal range during illness," Dr. Lee noted. "Humans can function with fevers that would incapacitate most species. It is part of our immune response. The elevated temperature helps kill bacteria." Minho sat by his fire that night, drinking water frequently to stay hydrated. The camera caught him speaking quietly to himself. "Grandfather would be laughing at me right now," he said, "getting an infection from a simple cut. He used to say that the city made me soft. Maybe he was right. But he also taught me that the body knows how to heal itself. Give it time. Give it help. Trust it." He changed the plant paste dressing, applying fresh leaves. Then he ate a small meal and added more wood to the fire. He was sweating from the fever, but his hands were steady. "He should trigger the beacon," someone in the observation center said. "Medical intervention now would prevent any serious complications." "But that would mean failure," Ren replied. "He would never be able to attempt the trial again. His entire purpose here would be lost." Commander Velthar said nothing, just watched. Day 4 arrived. Minho woke feeling weak but better. He checked his hand immediately. The redness had not spread further. The swelling was slightly reduced. The fever was breaking. By midday, his temperature was back to normal. By evening, the infection was clearly resolving. The medical monitor showed his white blood cell count beginning to normalize. The observation center was buzzing with discussion. "How?" the medical officer asked, genuinely confused. "That infection should have required antibiotic intervention." "It did receive intervention," Dr. Lee said. "His immune system is the intervention, plus the plant medicine, proper wound care, rest, and hydration. This is how humans survived for thousands of years before modern medicine. Our bodies are very good at healing themselves if we give them the chance." Cadet Silex, the crystalline being who had mocked Minho on the first day, watched in silence. He had come to the observation center every day, initially to watch Minho fail, but staying now for different reasons. Day 5. Minho's hand was healing well. The cut was closing, the inflammation gone. He was back to full activity. He had even improved his fishing trap design and caught 3 large fish. He cooked them over his fire and ate well, but more importantly, something had changed across the Union. The view count for his trial had grown to over 1 million beings. Discussion forums were filled with debates about humans, about Earth, about what the trial was revealing. Lieutenant Daiho monitored these discussions from Earth Defense Command. The tone was shifting. Fewer jokes, more genuine curiosity. Questions about human capabilities, human history, human survival skills. One popular discussion thread was titled, "What else can humans do that we thought was impossible?" Deo smiled. This was exactly what Minho had wanted. Not just to pass the test, but to change minds. On day 6, Minho did something unexpected. He spent the morning creating a detailed log entry in a waterproof notebook from his supplies. He wrote out everything he had learned: plant species, water sources, animal behavior, shelter construction, fire maintenance, tips for survival in the Amazon. That afternoon, he hiked to a location marked on his map as an old research station. It was abandoned, covered in vines, but still standing. He found the logbook inside, protected in a sealed container. He added his own notebook to it. He spoke to the camera. If any being from any species needs to come to Earth, to this jungle, they can find this information here. Survival is not about being strong or being tough. It is about learning, adapting, and respecting the environment. I hope this helps someone. In the observation center, Commander Velthar turned to his staff. Copy that log entry. Translate it into all Union languages. Distribute it to every cadet in the academy. Sir? Someone asked, surprised. That is valuable intelligence created under extreme conditions and offered freely for the benefit of others. That is what we try to teach here. Minho Park has just given us the best lecture on survival philosophy I have seen in 30 years of teaching. By the evening of day 6, Minho sat by his fire, relaxed and confident. His hand was almost completely healed. His shelter had been improved multiple times and would probably last for months. He had surplus food. He knew the area well enough to navigate by landmarks. One more day, he said to the camera. Tomorrow the ship comes. To be honest, I could stay longer. This place is beautiful once you understand it. The Union sees a death world. I see a living world. The difference matters. He looked up at the stars appearing through gaps in the canopy. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. I know I did. Across the galaxy, 1 million beings heard those words and understood. The human had not just survived. He had thrived. And that changed everything. Day 7 began with golden sunlight filtering through the canopy. Minho woke naturally, feeling stronger than he had since arriving. His hand was nearly healed, just a thin pink line where the cut had been. His body had adjusted completely to the humidity and heat. He felt alive in a way that 6 months on the station had not provided. The extraction ship would arrive at noon. He had 4 hours. Most cadets would have waited safely at the landing zone, counting down the minutes until rescue arrived. But Minho had different plans. He packed his supplies carefully, made sure his emergency beacon was secure, and set out toward the river he had discovered on day 2. In the observation center, the morning shift was already crowded. Word had spread that the final day would be broadcast on the Academy's main network, available to all Union stations. The viewer count had reached 3 million and was still climbing. Where is he going? Someone asked as Minho walked away from his shelter. Away from the extraction point, another observer noted with concern. Commander Velthar studied the map display. He is heading toward the river system. 2 kilometers east. Should we warn him? The ship arrives in 4 hours. He knows. Watch. Minho moved through the jungle with confidence now, avoiding obstacles, reading the terrain. He was no longer a visitor trying to survive. He moved like he belonged here. Because he did. This was his world. He reached the river, but this was not the small stream he had been using. This was wider, deeper, the water moving with real current. The banks were muddy, covered with tracks. This was a major route for wildlife. Minho found a spot where a large tree had fallen across the water, forming a natural bridge. He tested it carefully, then walked across. On the other side, the forest was slightly different. Older trees, thicker canopy, quieter. He found what he was looking for after 20 minutes of searching. A massive ceiba tree, its trunk easily 4 meters wide, its buttress roots spreading like walls, and high up in the branches, barely visible, he could see movement. Monkeys. A whole troop of them. He sat down at the base of the tree and waited. Watching. Patient. The observers were confused. What is his goal? Time is limited. Dr. Lee smiled, beginning to understand. Watch. After 10 minutes, the monkeys grew curious about the strange creature sitting beneath their tree. They chattered at him through small twigs. Minho did not react aggressively. He simply sat, occasionally looking up but not staring directly at them. Slowly, the monkeys came lower. Cautious but intrigued, one brave juvenile descended to a branch only 3 meters above Minho's head. It looked at him with intelligent eyes. Minho slowly took a piece of dried fruit from his pack. He placed it on the ground between his feet and moved back slightly. The young monkey watched, decided, scrambled down and grabbed the fruit, then raced back up the tree. The observers watched in silence as Minho spent 30 minutes building trust with wild animals. More monkeys came down. He shared more food, moved slowly, spoke softly. He was not trying to tame them. He was communicating, showing respect. "Do you see what he is doing?" Dr. Lee asked the room. "He is demonstrating one of humanity's greatest survival advantages. We do not just survive in our environment. We connect with it. We understand other species as fellow beings. This is why humans domesticated wolves into dogs, why we learned from watching birds which plants were safe to eat. We have always known that survival means cooperation, not domination." Minho eventually stood, bowed slightly to the monkeys, and began walking back toward his camp. The monkeys followed through the trees for a while, calling out, not in alarm, but in what seemed like farewell. He reached the river and started to cross the fallen log. Halfway across, he stopped. Something was moving in the water below. Large, dark, caiman, a crocodilian, about 3 meters long, drifting in the current below the log. Its eyes were above water, watching him. The observation center tensed. This was dangerous. Caiman were ambush predators. If Minho fell, if he slipped. But Minho did not panic. He did not run. He simply stood still on the log, maintaining his balance. He watched the caiman. The caiman watched him. After 30 seconds, the reptile drifted on, uninterested. Minho was too large, too alert, not prey behavior. The caiman continued downriver, disappearing around a bend. Minho finished crossing and continued back to his camp. His heart was beating faster, adrenaline in his system, but his hands were steady. That was extraordinary, someone whispered in the observation center. He remained calm when facing a predator that could have killed him. Because he understood the predator, Velthar said. He knew it was not hunting. He did not trigger its attack instincts by acting like prey. How many trained soldiers could do the same? Minho reached his camp with 2 hours until extraction. He used the time to carefully dismantle his shelter, returning materials to the forest floor. He buried the ashes of his fire pit. He removed all traces of his presence. "Why is he cleaning up?" a cadet asked. "Leave no trace," Dr. Lee explained. "It is a principle of wilderness survival. Take only memories, leave only footprints." He is showing respect for the environment. When Minho finished, the clearing looked almost as it had when he arrived. The jungle would reclaim it within weeks. It was as if he had never been there. At precisely noon, the dropship descended through the canopy, engines roaring. Captain Soman Yang was at the controls, bringing the ship down with expert precision. The rear ramp lowered. Minho walked up calmly, pack on his shoulder, 7 days of growth on his face, but walking steady and strong. Soman was grinning. "Welcome back to civilization, Cadet Park." Minho paused at the top of the ramp, looking back at the jungle one last time. The sounds, the smells, the green cathedral of trees. He spoke clearly, knowing the microphones would pick up his words. "Civilization?" He smiled. "Captain, I was just in the most civilized place in the universe. Nature in balance, every species knowing its role. Life and death in perfect cycle. That is true civilization. What we have built in space with our stations and ships, that is just shelter. Comfortable shelter, but still just shelter from the real world." He turned back to the ship and climbed aboard. The ramp closed. The ship lifted off, rising above the trees and accelerating toward orbit. The return journey took 6 hours. During that time, messages began flooding in from across the Union. The Academy's communication systems were overwhelmed with incoming calls and data requests. When the ship docked at Station Nexus Prime, Minho was surprised to find a crowd waiting. Hundreds of cadets and instructors lined the docking bay. As he walked down the ramp, they began applauding. Rin was at the front of the crowd. The insectoid approached, all 6 eyes bright. "Minho Park, you have taught us more in 7 days than we learned in 6 months of classes." Before Minho could respond, another figure pushed through the crowd. Cadet Silex, the crystalline being who had mocked him at the beginning. He stood before Minho, his body's light pulsing with what Minho had learned was embarrassment. "Cadet Park," Silex said formally, "I was wrong about you. About humans. I judged your species by my standards, which was foolish. I have watched every hour of your trial. Would you Would you be willing to teach a seminar on Earth survival? Many of us wish to learn. Minho looked at the assembled crowd, dozens of species all watching him with new respect. He thought about refusing, about pointing out that they had all laughed at him. But what would that accomplish? I would be happy to, he said simply. But not a seminar on survival, a seminar on perspective. Because the most important thing I learned is that what seems impossible to you might be natural to someone else, and that works both ways. There are things you find easy that I find incredibly difficult. We all have different strengths. Understanding that makes us stronger together. Commander Velthar stepped forward. The crowd parted for him immediately. He held a datapad in his clawed hand. Cadet Park, I have your official evaluation here. He paused, and for a moment his expression was unreadable. Then his features shifted into what might have been a smile. You have received the highest marks in the history of the Death World trial. Not just survival. Mastery. You demonstrated expert knowledge, adaptive thinking, respect for environment, and most importantly, you fulfilled an additional objective we did not tell you about. Sir, the true purpose of the Death World trial is not to test survival skills. Those can be taught. It is to test leadership under pressure, to see if you can maintain your principles when facing something that terrifies others. You did more than survive Earth. You showed the entire Union that humans belong here, that Earth, for all its dangers, produced a species worthy of standing beside any other. Velthar handed him a small crystal medallion, the highest honor the Academy could award. You have exceeded every expectation. Well done, Cadet. The crowd applauded again, louder this time. Minho accepted the medallion, feeling its weight. Thank you, sir. But I should clarify something. I did not do this alone. Every human who ever survived Earth, who learned from the land, who passed knowledge to the next generation, they all contributed. I was just the one lucky enough to demonstrate what we have always been capable.